have a seat. I'm going to state my name for the record. We record everything around here. Lawyer, game master, appointed counsel for N2 the Forrest Oracle. I'm assuming that's you. All right, I got your file in. I got discovery notes, but let's take a look. And whew, all right, 40 years. That can be a bit rough. Complaints, railroading, party management, boring. All right, all the stuff I've seen before. The worst TSR module ever made. That's got to sting a little bit. And I do got to ask, what's with the 16-year-old girls? So before we go through and assign blame on anything, I think what we have here is a big misunderstanding on a lot of the evidence and a lot of the points. I'm going through everything, and I think we have a case. First, we're going to go over the crime scene. Let's take a look what we got here. We got Forrest, we got druids, we got traveling people, we got townsfolk. That can't be right. We have factions, we have multiple locations. Some of the writing might not be that great, and some of the encounter lists aren't great, but I'm seeing a spark of real world building here.
Well, when you get a case like this, you're not quite sure what to expect. Most people come in with one or two things, but the evidence was stacking up. I was going through everything I could. Maps, tiles, I was counting hexes. I was retracing the steps. I went through the player map, the bandit camp, the orcs, the ogre, the yeti. None of it was coming through to me. Long hours deep into the night, wondering if I should have even taken this case at all. Then remembering, I didn't have a choice. The inn, the 16-year-old girls, the clearings. What does it all mean? The castle, ruins, second encounters, goblins, the druids. Yes. A yeti, an ogre, a pegasus, gypsies. I think I have it now. The thing that brought the case all together. It seemed like I was doing more detective work than I actually was lawyering. But some days that's how it goes. Let's bring this to court.
All rise for the Honorable Judge, player character. All right, be seated. Members of the jury. Counsel will remember to remain seated during your statements. Yes, Your Honor. Members of the jury. We have all heard the tales of N2 the Forrest Oracle. We've seen reviews online. We've seen live plays. We have seen how terrible it truly must be. But I'm here to tell you that these charges brought against my client stem solely from a lack of understanding. The prosecution is going to point to bad pacing, poor structure. They will point to unanswered questions that they themselves have, and they will point to try to make confusion. And they will ask you to conclude that the module itself is guilty. I will prove that N2 has been accused of being something that it was never trying to be. The prosecution judged an ecosystem as if it was a screenplay. They're treating a living world written by an editor, not a creative writer, as a page-by-page booklet. I'm going over the list of charges with plot. We have to understand that this plot was written by someone who is an editor first, someone who refined by subtracting, not making fluff, not making filler. So if some of the dialogue or some of these options feel rigid and stiff, it's because this is someone not used to writing filler material and had to step up because there were massive layoffs. TSR themselves split into 4 different companies while this was being written. This was a lifeblood for advanced D&D to get back on its feet in the midst of satanic panic. On the charges of it being too linear or too straightforward or bad advice, I asked simply, what is the definition of novice? Is it one skill level? Or is it a range of skills intended for you to grow through? When something is novice, this might be the higher end of novice. This might be something that more advanced game masters can go back to, and in fact, this speaks to a more Gygaxian style of bringing your worlds together. We must agree that only beginners run an adventure module as if it's a book, page by page by page. Every game master that I've ever known takes an adventure module, goes through the pages, sees what the pacing is, and starts trying to build a world around that, branching it out. Now, some modules are written so terribly they don't provide their own ecosystem. So I went through the module, the Forrest Oracle, to see if I could answer all of my questions with self-contained information inside of the module. This is how we should judge creative writing. Can all of these things be answered by things that are even speculation, but are provided with the fewest jumps in logic, based directly off of the written material?
Needing all the help I could get, I went to the druids to see if I could get a comment. They refused. The longer the trial went on, the more the prosecution's case was making sense. I've heard it all before, and in the past 40 years, I mean, who hasn't? But there's something more. As I was delving, and somewhere between the hex tiles, the maps that didn't seem to be lined up together, and the encounters that everyone says were horribly unbalanced, I was looking for something more. The relationships, the farmers, the gypsies, the goblins, the ogre, the Pegasus, and the druids. Are they all connected? Player agency doesn't mean anything. It seems to. Why does no one ever show that they can switch back at night? The hide druid, one of the only encounters you can't hide weapons for. And look at this. They've been bothered by many things in the great old wood. I knew it. This doesn't seal the deal, but this gives me something to rely on. Something to fall back to. So I brought it to court.
And so what evidence do we have? I present before you the Forrest. It's inhabited. It's a living ecosystem. It has locations that are interconnected, and it has people that have their own motivations for everything happening behind the scene. Everything is more than it appears in this module, and the text concludes it. I found in my discovery that a lot of the things that seem to be railroading still actually have player ifs and should they, and what path they choose. This isn't a module that's nearly as railroady as I thought even first going in. The gypsies are there and they set what seems to be things in motion. They have a magical creature with them as a pet, a traveling companion even. They're going through these druid-infested, enchanted woods that have all these nymphs and wargs, and everything under the sun is right here in this ecosystem of extremely magical forest. That being the case, they travel through, and druids are just going to allow a Pegasus, this wonderful creature of soaring freedom, a real sign of nature's power and majesty and magic, all in one place. The druids even say that there's things that have been going on in their woods that bother them, and the thing that they point to is the capturing of dire wolves by the goblins. So if it's not okay for the goblins to capture dire wolves to ride them into battle, to have a purpose that kind of fits the dire wolf animalistic nature, then taking a Pegasus as a pet, we start to see that maybe it's not loose writing by the module, maybe it's not a terrible adventure, but we start to see the inner foundations of real mystery, real intrigue. And speculation starts pointing to the druids. Let's take a look at where the druidic inspiration in D&D comes from. Old actual fae and folklore. Druids were about balance. They were cruelly about balance in their original folklore. But now today we take it as something that is druids are happy, happy, joy, joy, all about life and love. No, they were about balance. They were about judgments, and they were about exacting those without getting blood on their hand. They're part of the Fey Kingdom. They still manipulate humans because druids are connected to something much bigger. That's the way they see it. So these druids, if I were putting it together, I wouldn't be focused on everything the DM is supposed to tell people. Look at the module as a whole. Look at it as an ecosystem. The druids see the gypsies coming in, see that they have a Pegasus. They go, we're going to get a real crafty ogre. We're going to make a real crafty ogre if we have to. But we're going to find one, and we're going to bring him in. And we're going to make sure that he gets that Pegasus away from them. Speculation only. But this is speculation that's put inside the words of the module itself. The encounter writing isn't great. It's not terrible, though. This is advanced Dungeons & Dragons just getting another foothold in the ground. Systems were unstable. Numbers were going to be unstable for a while still. That's the nature of updates. That's the nature of what game mechanics work and what ones don't. Writing concepts, there's some loopholes. But again, we're asking an editor to be a creative writer. And we're asking another editor to go back and edit that. Things like the outrageous sum of money for the Pegasus makes way more sense to just be a generic plea for help to the humans, right? There doesn't need to be any of the gypsies saying, we need your silver to pay this gold. That doesn't make sense. If a generic cry for help was put in there as a blank filler piece, and someone came along and said, well, we got to put a number to this, we got to do something with this. But I see it as a generic plea for help. I see that's what's being written here. And sure, if someone went through and like, hey, I got to get my Pegasus back, this ogre's real bad, we got to work together and deal with this thing, and someone went, no, that's your problem. Yeah, I might curse the crops. I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do. I'm saying I understand. So I feel like the gypsies, we can put this into motion with the druids. The druids, everything circles around the druids in these woods. And I think we should give this module a chance to actually be run the way it's supposed to be run. Not for the laughs, not for the memes, not for the giggles, but to actually sit down, read the module, pace it out, and with an understanding as a game master, really run it for a group. And run it for a group of 6 to 8 people, none of these 4 or 5. Like, let's do a full group. Sit everybody down and run through it. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. Members of the jury, in closing, we've seen the ecosystem that was built for my client. We see how these things are interconnected between the villagers, the druids, the gypsies, the goblins. We see the logic of the forest itself in this writing. So when you go back and you decide guilty or not guilty, remember, are these things that the suspicions and are these questions that the module is having us ask, are these being answered inside the module? I believe yes. And I know that we have shown that today. We have shown beyond a reasonable doubt that there was clear intention behind this module. And it meets the criteria of what players and game masters want out of a module. So when you see this being played, ask yourself, is the GM holding true to the logic of the writing? Or are they playing it for the memes? Are they playing it for the laughs? Are they playing it to play the historically worst adventure module of all time?
No, it's not your fault. You told them 6 to 8 players. But what's with the 16-year-olds? Really?
The jury's still out. But I am going to say, as a professional game master, if anybody wants me to run my version of the Forest Oracle that doesn't change the things that everybody else changes to make it better, I'll run that game for anybody who wants. I do have a Patreon. Link is in the channel description. I do throw it below some of the videos. I don't think it's a clickable link, but that's fine. But I will game master anybody that wants to run the Forest Oracle the way that I believe it was intended to be run. Not for memes, not for laughs, but if you want to play the way that it was probably played back when it came out, or how it should have been played back when it came out, let me know.